Awesome.
Actually, hang on, no, sorry, 2 seconds. My bad. I just need to make sure.
Damn it, Liam. Kia ora, guys, and welcome to this week's episode, or one of our episodes of the Wholesome Half Hour. I'm McKenzie, as per usual, but we have more fun face. That's not Siren for once, because he's not going to roast me or interrupt me. Well, we'll see. I don't know yet. But this is Liam, and yeah, what are you going to be talking with us about today, Liam? Because I feel like this is your sort of idea and things.
Yeah, well, I guess we're going to break away from a bit of the COVID stuff, which will be really good. Like everyone, I'm getting pretty sick of it all. But hopefully we're moving in the right direction. So I guess I want to take an opportunity to talk about something that I find quite interesting, and it's thinking about careers and life after school, and how to kind of approach making these decisions for when you leave school, because it was something that I found quite challenging, deciding what to do, I guess. And I think now's a really good time as well. We can take an opportunity to think about it, because it can give us a bit of hope this time of COVID. It's a good chance to take a break from school and think about what's coming in the future.
So I guess like you kind of hinted what do you study, I guess, because I feel like that will be a question that people will ask if you've put so much thought into it.
Yes, this is really interesting. So I personally study civil engineering. I'm in my third year of a degree. But I actually am still quite uncertain on my own path, which might sound a bit ironic. But I guess what I have found is some purpose, and worked out what I value, and what I want to achieve, essentially. Not necessarily the specifics of my career, but found things that give me purpose. So I kind of want to talk about some things that we can help to guide us to find that kind of thing.
Awesome, cool. I think that, like, I'm gonna hijack for a second, but I do think like that kind of methodology around job seeking or the idea of a career or any kind of thing this day and age, like I feel that we need to kind of move away from this idea of only wanting a specific job, but instead looking at what are the things that we value, what are the things that we want to do, and then what kind of occupations kind of follow that. And I think that sort of feeds into and I don't know if you're familiar with this, Liam, and I imagine that the study time audience is even less likely to, but the idea of a mechanical society versus an organic society. And so a mechanical society is kind of how you can feel, how you sort of think about, maybe my parents, I don't know about study time audience's parents. A mechanical society is very much like falling under this idea of you study law, you become a lawyer, you retire, you die. That's a really grim way to put it. But it's this idea of like you study for a role and then you fulfill that role until you're no longer useful to society. Whereas an organic society really kind of flips that idea in its head and says, well, every person will go through like different changes in their life, and kind of what goes with that is like changes to jobs, changes to values, changes to roles. And so an organic society becomes far more specialized, and also not only kind of like promotes, but like has a lot more movement about staff moving between different companies, different places, different roles. Like a mechanical society, it would be like this idea of, oh, you're a fast food worker. An organic society is a little bit more like, oh, you're a sandwich expert. What is it Subway calls them?
Sandwich artist. I was a sandwich artist myself.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh,
an artiste.
No,
on my CV.
Oh, yeah, certainly. And I mean, it's no shade. I think I know some people like to sort of take them back and say maybe it's a little bit glorified, but like at the end of the day, it's a more specialized role than like just what the mechanical society would maybe call it. But yeah, no, I think it is really important these days to be thinking about your own values and what you find important when deciding these kind of things.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like something when you leave school that I found is like you suddenly got a whole lot of freedom and you're fully independent, and you essentially have this awesome opportunity to do something, I guess. But without kind of preparing for that, you can feel a bit like a baby bird leaving a nest without knowing how to fly. And that's not fun. So I guess the earlier you think about it, the easier it is to kind of approach. And so I guess one way that we can break this down that works really well is we use a fancy acronym called SOTA. So essentially self-awareness, option awareness, deciding, and then acting and planning. So I think the biggest one is the first one, self-awareness. And it's kind of what you touched on there, McKenzie, about values and who are we as a person and how are we going to evolve. So I guess, you might have heard the question, like, what are you passionate about when deciding a job? And I hated this question. Like, at school, I was always like, passionate. Like, I don't know.
I mean, you're much to be here.
Yeah, pretty much. I was interested in a lot of things, but
yeah, but
I'm just here.
I fully get that.
Yeah, and so like it was real hard to work out something exactly tangible that I wanted to pursue. And I was sort of envious of those people who like knew exactly or seemed to know exactly what they were going to do when they leave school.
Disclaimer: nobody knows, but yeah. You kind of look at someone else and you think, oh, they've got it figured out, and that person probably thinks the exact same thing. That's
what it feels like. And at the time, I was like, damn, that sucks. But later, I did come to realize, actually, it's awesome not knowing what's coming next. It's cool that we are, as you say, like, because we get a chance to evolve and change how we do things. So I guess, one way that I think we can approach it more, what do we value? A career is a big decision and it's a big part of our life, but I don't think it doesn't have to define us. And sometimes that pressure can be put on, I think. So it can be helpful to think about how is my career going to accommodate my values, things that I really, really want to get after. People say, oh, if you're passionate about your job, you don't have to work another day in your life. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. If you have a job, you can do that.
Not only that, I think that's a flawed way of thinking for a multitude of different reasons. Psychologically speaking, as soon as you kind of take something on and it becomes a commitment rather than a hobby, your brain does the old switcheroo on it. Guess what? You probably don't like it as much as you thought you did at first because it's now mandatory. If that's not the case for you, like, that's great. But I so think this idea of a passion that is like your life goal that you were like built to do is just so outdated, and it's just so not realistic, and it sets people up for disappointment, I think, ultimately.
For sure, yeah. That's why, like, it helps to pursue things that you're interested in, for sure. But it doesn't have to be the be all and end all of who you are. So, that's another question that can be asked. Should a career be something that you're good at or something that you enjoy? This is really interesting. Some people have different
Damn, you got me thinking, man. I don't know. I just came here for a wholesome half-hour yarn. I didn't want to go live. Damn.
Big questions.
There's a Facebook announcement the next day, like, Mackenzie's decided to leave study.
And why would that be? Is it because you're not good at it or because you're not enjoying it?
Oh, damn. Put me on blast, man, in a podcast. That's bold.
You've got to defend yourself. But yeah, for sure. So it is something that people can be on both sides.
Yeah.
But I guess something that I encourage people to consider is that if you enjoy something, you are likely to become good at it because you will spend time at it, you'll pursue it, and you'll be interested in learning more. Whereas if it's something that you might be good at school, but you're not particularly interested, then your motivation to keep learning will probably actually drop off. So I think it can be a meeting between them both. But again, it comes back to deciding, what do you value in your career, and what is it that you want?
Yeah.
And I also think, I don't know if you're experiencing this, McKenzie, but there seems to be a lot of pressure, to make the right decision, which is again flawed. It doesn't exist. What is the right decision?
The one that I hate the most to this day. Liam's also a tutor. For anybody who watches this regularly or kind of knows, we also tutor students. But I think one of the things that I absolutely hate hearing, and by no means is this a fault of my students, is getting towards the end of the year most years with students, and they're like, hi, can you sit down and help me figure out which classes I want to take next year? This is a year 10, and they're like, my teachers are telling me that my NCEA level 1 subjects are going to tell me what kind of job I can get, and I'm like, that is just not true. And I hate that buy-in, and I don't think teachers use it sort of realizing the kind of pressure it kind of puts on students. I think sometimes they try to do that to make students seriously think about their subjects, but ultimately it just kind of freaks them out, because they barely know what's going on in their classes, let alone deciding their career however many years down the track. It's a total cognitive dissonance, because adults realize, they're like, oh, teenagers suck at making their own decisions, and then they also turn around and say, also, this is going to impact the rest of your life, better not mess it up. It's a complete contradiction of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I guess if we move on to kind of the next section of SODA acronym, is looking at option awareness. So I guess once you kind of evaluate what's important to you, it is helpful to look at what's out there, and that's always changing. So what are some ways that we can approach it? I guess one of the best ways is talking to people. Get out there and find out from people who have already been through this, and have already decided. You might have some preconception about what a builder does from when you watch Bob the Builder, but the reality is it's probably quite different, as I'm sure you can imagine. But talking to people, you might find out something about the job that you had no idea about, and that might put you off it, or it might make you want to go more into it. But it's absolutely the best way to find out about it is by getting in touch with people. And it'll open more options for you.
Yeah. And I think, and with that as well, when you're discussing this kind of thing with people, I think this needs to be had with the heavy disclaimer that you can 99% of a role that you have in your life, but there is always going to be work that you have to do that you don't want to do. So I think if anybody right now is thinking I'm going to find the perfect job that only has ticks for me, I'm going to stop you short, honey. That's not going to happen. Just like how your favorite subject at school, I bet that there's a standard in there that you absolutely loathe, but you got to do it, and you like the subject as a whole. There's no magic bullet for this or anything like that. It's about considering, what resonates most with you.
Definitely. And along with that, so there is always going to be those nasty bits in a job. So it's important to as well consider what will your lifestyle actually look like for that job. At school I was really into economics and global kind of relations and things. I was like, oh, I'd love to get into some kind of diplomacy and go work at the UN or something. I had these crazy ideas. And I basically thought about it, and I was like, that's just going to be me always in a suit, always going to meetings. It's not something that I particularly want from a lifestyle. So, with engineering, I'm projects always changing, and do a bit of outside stuff, and it can fit my lifestyle. So I think that's definitely another thing that's worthwhile to consider.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be a lawyer when I was a kid, like.
As a kid?
Yeah, I know, it's weird. Look, everyone else wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to sign the papers that put my grandparents in a rest home. It's fine.
Wow.
It was.
You must have been an interesting kid.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know the half of it. Moving on, though.
Yeah, cool. And like, don't forget the alternative options as well. So like, uni is often pushed a lot.
Oh my god, yes.
But it's so unnecessary. Like, something I found really interesting overseas, like in Europe, there's not that many people that go to uni.
Yeah.
It's only for people who like want to go into those professions, like being a lawyer, like being a doctor, or an engineer or something like that. All the other things, like there's so many good opportunities just by going into the workplace, learning on the job. You know, like uni's great and all, but there's so much there that you learn that you don't actually use. Yeah, on the job is a great opportunity.
Yeah. I think that argument can be made both ways, though. And I think, like, I have a bit of a personal vendetta PSA that I want to put out. When I was in high school, being in an accelerated class meant that almost every teacher, like, expected you to go to uni. And there was almost this attitude around, why are you still in year 13 if you're not going to uni? Like, you're better off just leaving. Like, maybe you should be going, making yourself useful in society. First off, no. You want to finish year 13 regardless of what you want to do after uni? You do that. Or after school, sorry. And equally, you, just because you're in maybe like a higher class, or you feel that there are expectations on you to like default go to uni, and you have no idea what you want to do, don't go. Who cares? If it's not for you, don't go for other people, because you will not last, I promise you. Vice versa, if you are somebody who feels that you're being forced into like vocational or pathway stuff and you want to go to uni, then go to uni. Like, do what is for you. And I think the school environment really tries to influence how you should think of your own future. And ultimately, they are only 5 years of your life. They are not going to tell you how to live the rest of your life. And it's totally up to you, regardless of the classroom that you put in, regardless of what a teacher has to say to you, regardless of any of that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it is your life. You're in the driver's seat. Well, you need to be in the driver's seat. Like, it's an opportunity, I guess, to actually be a little bit selfish.
Heck yeah.
If you want to go on a gap year for an OE, that's a great option too. Yeah. Like, don't feel rushed into a decision. I think that's one of the worst things we can do is feel like we're getting trapped into the rat race, so to speak. That we need to get ahead, we need to start earning, get into a house, all these things. But like, if that's not your ambition, then don't feel the pressure to go into it.
Yeah. Fight the system.
Yeah, fight the system. Break out. Be your own person.
We're in the matrix. It's fine.
And again, I think it comes back to that whole thing of, again, it is becoming more acceptable to do that as well, which is pretty cool, because we are in that organic society, as you say, and the world is changing. I think I heard a stat where, like, on average, a person will change their career 5 times over their working life, but like that number is going up and up and up.
Yeah, incredibly so.
So like you're saying, like the previous generation, for example, might have had a set job, and that's like it's even where like last names came from. Like if you're a Mr. and Mrs. Butcher, it's because you ran the butcher shop.
Very funny names you get off that.
And so things are changing now.
Yeah.
Like, one great example I like to use is my sister. Okay, so hopefully she doesn't mind me using this, but she went and like studied teaching. That fell through. She then went and did like managing a gym. That fell through, and then like working as a life coach. That kind of stopped. Ended up like working with goats in a farm. Apparently, learning how to work with kids helps you out when you want to. So
it's because they scream like a man. So it's
Yeah, but I think what's important to realize there is that, like, that's fine. No experience is wasted. You know, you might be even your part-time job that you might be working while you're at school. Like, it might seem like it sucks, and you might seem like you're only doing it for the money, but that is giving you valuable skills. You know, it's teaching you how to be an employee, how to work with other people, how to communicate with like your boss and things like that. So none of it's wasted. If something doesn't work out, like, that's okay.
Totally.
There is an opportunity to change. Kind of. You want to, again, it is a big decision, so you do want to think clearly about these things, but it's not the be all.
Yeah, totally.
Also, just something to briefly touch on is, like, we get a lot of questions about how to make yourself more employable, and with things like, you know, how do I write a good CV? How do I write a good cover letter? Interviews, how to do all these things. I mean, there's a whole lot of tips in there. Hopefully, stay tuned. We'll be coming out with some good resources on this soon. But essentially, what you want to try and do, I think, is express who you are. It's really important to show your personal skills where you can in these things. You want to, employers like people who are honest. If you are just trying to, again, fit the mold and kind of show your technical skills, that's great. But who are you? Who are you as a person? What point of difference can you bring as an individual? And so don't, you know, if you've got some wacky hobby that you think they won't want to know a thing about that, you know, maybe reconsider, because it shows who you are as a person. And I think that's really valuable.
Totally. Hey, Liam, I'm going to have to throw a huge spanner in the works. I thought this would only take half an hour. I have a student in about a minute.
20 minutes later.
Long story short, it was poor planning on my part, and it's at 4 p.m. tomorrow. And I'm sorry for wasting your time. Thank you for being patient with me. Everyone's had to be so patient with me. I'm not useful to anyone at the moment.
How many hours are you doing at the moment?
For anyone that noticed, jump in our recording just then. We just had some technical difficulties. It was me. I'm the technical difficulty. Liam's face really just sent that one home.
Yeah, what can I say?
First time being.
It happens to everyone.
1 star won't be coming back. Terrible Yelp review. But anyway, Liam, what were you talking about? Sort of just to, you know, update on not update, but get us back on track.
I think we were just talking about some employability skills, and looking at how to increase your opportunities and sort of your employability. And yeah, we were talking briefly about CVs and things, and how to sort of convey who you are as a person. Yeah. Cool, that's the one. And yeah, so something else I think is really important that people sometimes underestimate the value of in terms of creating opportunities for employment is something, I don't know if there's something that's really covered much at high school, but the power of networking.
LinkedIn?
LinkedIn. It starts to, like, to be honest, I wasn't really introduced to it until I sort of got to uni. And what this whole concept of networking was really. So as in a real brief kind of summary of what it is, essentially, like, it's your professional network, the people that you know. It's kind of ties in with that saying, it's not what you know, but it's who you know, which isn't completely true, some things, but knowing people is very, very helpful when you're looking to progress in your career.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, and I think this is a bit of an uncomfortable truth for a lot of people, especially if you were kind of starting from scratch. Like, I don't know how much you've talked with your students before, Liam, about ever like getting a job and stuff like that. But like, I know that I've had quite a few of my students that, like, you know, I've helped them with their like CV, or like I even gave one of my students a reference. It was so funny. But
so fun.
it's great. I'm like, she's a great person. Like, you know, like totally vouch. It was great. It was so much fun. But I know that a big dissuader for people in understanding this idea of like, it's not what you know, it's who you know, is, well, what if I don't know anyone? And that is a real challenge for people at first. And I think that don't, you know, undervalue the power of just putting yourself out there and just applying. I think one of the worst things that you can ever do in this kind of regard is just not do anything at all, because that's definitely not going to help the situation.
Yeah, and like putting yourself out there as well isn't just applying. Like, if a job's advertised, you know, everyone sees that. If you really want to stand out, like, people really appreciate, like employers will really appreciate if you literally rock up on the door and, hey, I'm looking for an opportunity. Here's my CV. Like, happy to talk.
Yeah,
they might not get back to you, but they might. And even if they don't, like, you can actually be really stubborn, really persistent. You know, it might have just been bad timing. There might have not been a job available at that time. Like when I was a sandwich artiste, that was, you know, that was one of my first jobs. I actually had a job at McDonald's. Do not recommend. But I had kind of applied around to just a whole lot of places, just giving my CV.
Yeah.
And thankfully, like, it was like 2 months later, Subway got back to me. They're like, hey, we have a position available. And I was like, sweet, I'm definitely going to and leave McDonald's. Eat fresh, guys. And yeah, like it's really powerful putting yourself out there, making yourself known.
Yeah.
Because it shows that you take initiative.
Yeah.
Driven, not just another person who kind of just wants the money.
Yeah, no, that is so true. And I think part of my role is actually helping with hiring and things like that. And I know that, and maybe this comes from a bit of a personal bias standpoint, because I so much understand this idea of like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But like, in talking about what you were saying, Liam, about like personal attributes and things like that, like if I had two people standing in front of me and one of them seemed really capable but had a poor attitude, and somebody else had a great attitude but maybe didn't know the job as well, I would go for the person with the better attitude every time. Only for the fact that, like, it is so important. Maybe this again is just for myself, but it's so much more important that the people who I work with, or the people who are working on the things that they do, are passionate and that they resonate with the job in some way, shape or form. And obviously that can't be said for a lot of beginning jobs. Like, my first job was at a fish and chip shop. I'm a vegetarian. I promise you I wasn't passionate. Like, it's you know, I wasn't a vegetarian at the time, by the way. Well, halfway through. Anyway, that's not the point. But like, it's one of those things where, you know, you have to start small, and you might not enjoy it as much at first, but showing initiative and putting a good attitude forward just does so much. It is honestly worlds apart when somebody is, you know, maybe not the most, you know, knowledgeable about that field in the world, but they have a willingness to learn and an enthusiasm like that. It goes so much further than I think people think it does.
Yeah, definitely. And like, you know, you're saying that from a hiring perspective as well. And I think even when you're applying for a job, even if you've got no experience of that, like, you can kind of put yourself in their shoes and think, you know, what type of person do I want? Yeah, like you say, if they know all the skills, but they're not going to be able to work well with other people, or they're not going to be able to take instruction or learn new things, then, you know, what's the point, I guess? Whereas someone who, yeah, they might not have all the skills, as you say, but is resilient, adaptable, like can deal with things not always being perfect, who can communicate well. Communication's huge. communication blunders can cause all kinds of issues. And so the more clear you are on communication with other people, helps your teamwork, and it helps the workplace in general.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like the more we talk about this, Liam, the more like this episode could go on for like 2 or 3 hours just from us like bouncing off each other right now, I think, because I've got like a million other things in my head that I'm like, but this could also be useful. So, and yeah, this is a huge topic and there is so much in it. Like, you know, there's so much that Liam's mentioned today, like, you know, in writing a CV, like in writing a cover letter, which I'm at least 30% sure we have articles for on the Study Time website. That's a high percentage. We have like a how to write a CV article in the Study Time abyss somewhere. It's a good article, I promise. But I didn't write it, by the way. Yeah, I think a big thing around all of this kind of stuff, and I think a lot of what you were talking about today, Liam, is this idea of planned happenstance. And I don't know how familiar you might be with Liam, but I will just like ever so briefly explain to our audience and stuff for anybody who maybe hasn't seen it in any of our content before. But planned happenstance is this idea that if you do the things that interest you, if you say yes to opportunities that are given to you, you will find yourself in a place that you are happy with. And that doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, what you might have thought it was originally, but you've always kept the door open to opportunity, and you have you know, put yourself out there, you've put your hand up, you have taken opportunity when it's provided to you. And a lot of people talk about this. I know Jordan could probably talk about this a lot better than myself, but it's really powerful. And, you know, don't always think about like a specific end goal, but think about experiencing what you want to experience right now. And I think we are this big caveat of being at uni as well, and maybe you can attest to this, Liam, is this idea that as soon as you're outside of uni, damn, you better be working, like, or you better be doing a job in that area or whatever. And so I think there is a lot of pressure to see a career or see that skill set as a means to an end, rather than like something that you can actually use to empower yourself to direct your own life.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, so kind of to just close off on that, you know, see it. It can be daunting, but see it as a really exciting opportunity. Like, you know, you do have the world ahead of you. Like, this is the leaving the nest. So it's kind of it's a pretty exciting time, and you can make what you want of it. And I know that might sound a little bit cliche, but
it's a fact.
You know, embrace the fact that you don't know what's necessarily around the corner, but great things could happen. There'll be some tough times, there'll be some good times, but it's all part of you know, it's all part of the journey, and there's real richness in that.
100%. Yeah, it's part of the human condition, my dude. Like, it's not always going to be peachy, and it's not always going to be bad. And you know, it's about thinking about what you want to do, and not just 10 years in time. Think about what you want to do now. You know, think about like the things that you can do in the meantime that isn't this huge lofty end goal that may or may not ever be reached. Yeah, again, I feel like you and I could talk about this all day, or maybe just me, I don't know, but yeah, I guess is that more or less you've for today, Liam?
Yeah, no, that's definitely the main thing that I wanted to kind of convey, is that yeah, there's things we can do to prepare, but the main thing is work out where you want to grow personally, search for that honestly, and things will work out.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for being on with me today. I really appreciate it, and like, I know I hope, you know, the audience also, you know, picks up a few things. I know I definitely did. I really enjoyed this, which is a bit selfish maybe, but I don't care. So thank you all for watching and or listening. Stay tuned for our future episodes where we will be having probably more of me and Sarah, but also some more fun, interesting people like Liam, who can talk about, something a bit different, first off, but also, just get some more faces in here. I think it's so important that as a part of study time that, I don't know, everyone sort of sees a bunch of similar faces working towards the same goal imperfectly as we humans do. That was a weird philosophical way to end this.
That was very interesting philosophical, but
thank you.
Very good.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
See ya.